EU official calls Floyd's death an abuse of power. I wonder what that cop who killed Floyd is thinking right now. Worst thing is noon could help him. If anyone tried to get the cops off him, he would risk getting shot. He was killed in broad daylight. What the USA needs to do now is 1. Investigate the response. Why were cops shooting at journalists? Why were cops shooting at people on their own property? 2. Continue the prosecution of the accused murderer. Do a broad investigation of police shootings and why it happens so much more often in America. Take steps to reduce systemic racism. There has been a ton of research on this topic, and surely there are some immediate, low-hanging fruit, steps we can take. Make it an instantly fireable offense for a police officer to interfere with someone filming them. Reopen the books on every officer in the country with multiple complaints or officer-involved shootings and reinvestigate them and pull their guns until they are cleared. Edit, typo. Trump is gonna pull out his playbook and join the EU just so he can tweet about leaving it. Well, yes, it was. As a European, Floyd's death is chilling in its senselessness. But the way the protests have been handled is even more shocking. I think there's a culture of solving problems with violence that is common in the US and that is extremely toxic. I can't believe that all cops are violent thugs eager to act like the arm of fascism, but it is nonetheless facts that they have been behaving horribly and that almost always when one cop starts they all follow. They don't keep each other in check. Which leads me to believe that the herd and violence mentality is really common. This what we need. World leaders are always quick to condemn Russia or China for their abuses. They need to do the same with the US with what is going. Additionally, demand that Trump step down for his blatant calls for violence against innocent civilians expressing their rights. Edit, I don't think US officials disagree. Police, we commit crimes so you don't have to. Thanks EU. Thanks for agreeing with 99.99999999999999999% of humans on the planet that a guy kneeling on a guy's neck for 9 minutes is an abuse of power. r/nah shit Sherlock. How is this news? Everybody thinks it's an abuse of power. Literally nobody says it was a deserved death, it was murder. This isn't news. I call Floyd's death the result of years and years of inadequate politics/politicians. I didn't realize that there was any confusion about that. I'd call it a murder. After the COVID cover-up scandal and HK protest crackdown, the US was on the moral high ground over the CCP, however they threw that right in the trash by attacking journalists and citizens in the street. This was a huge opportunity to show the world how to properly deal with protests, but the US failed on a historical level. They are gonna use every possible word in dictionary except the word murder. Everyone knows it's bad when the world condemns it. Except for Trump, who probably is playing golf in his bunker. What about the ongoing police harassment of peaceful protesters, forcing people to choose between rioting or failing to defend themselves? If the EU doesn't state its unequivocal condemnation of American police tactics at a broader scale, they risk normalizing it at home. RN, the largest opposition party in France, is tweeting that these riots are a product of liberal and Socdem multiculturalism. Source will be in reply. That is why the officer involved is in jail and being charged with third-degree murder. While it was clearly an abuse of power, everyone keeps talking about racism. Out of curiosity, is there any evidence pointing to the motive being racism? Did the cop have a history of racist behavior? Or was he just an asshole in general and the guy he killed was black? I'm wondering if these two things are kind of getting misconstrued. Literally everybody who is reasonable agrees with this. The man is in jail and likely will be for a long time. Every single cop who was in the video was arrested to my knowledge. Can somebody please point out one person who isn't a literal neo-Nazi who said what that cop did is justified? Everybody agrees it was fucked up, he was arrested. Can we please stop beating up innocent strangers, burning down/looting small businesses and ruining lives? Of course it is. There is no debate. Never was. Next. Finally, a chime in that matters. missed responses of other national leaders if there have been any. The EU is the largest collective seat of power outside of the UN. Having their public condemnation is a huge step in pressuring the US to reform and change. Removed. As an American, when I see things like EU official calls George Floyd's death an abuse of power, it comes across like they are making some sort of revelation. As if they uniquely hold this opinion. Yeah man. Americans also think it's an abuse of power. Hey, how about this one? American man says Brexit is a messy situation. Is that input useful to you? It's murder. Which is what the police officer is being charged with. Hopefully he gets found guilty and goes to jail. Sydney is in Australia. Everyone's been calling it an abuse of power for like 4 days now. Late to the party. EU official says obvious statement, but we're amazed by the government taking any stances against unfairness, so we sensationalize it? Who the fuck listens to the EU? Sure. Well yeah. What else would it be when someone has you tied up and kneels on the back of your neck? Well, yeah. Tell me something I don't know. It's kind of funny that it comes from EU. 24k upvotes for stating the obvious, as does the vast majority of the US. What is the difference between a legitimate use of power and an abuse of power? If you believe in the legitimacy of government, then surely you must believe that the use of violence against innocent people can be made legitimate by performing certain rituals such as voting and legislation. I'm just wondering where that line is. Is it when politicians approve the violence against innocent people that it transforms from an abuse to a legitimate exercise of power? Could a believer educate me on this? When will the global community impose sanctions on this terrible authoritarian country that abuses its power on its own citizens and call for the overthrow of their government? Everyone agrees. The guy's in jail. Thank you, world. Solidarity. Sparkling heart, raised fist. All world powers that ever were have fallen, the USA will be no different. Wait, is that picture from Australia? The country where all politicians pride themselves about how hardcore they are about offshore concentration camps. The racial power structure in the US is fucked up, but all Western democracies something to answer for. Is this just EU saying, you Americans suck at policing, but in a snobby way? Not an American. Gee, thanks EU. Oh wow. So good and brave of them. Fuck me. That's because it was a little late to the party, but okay. Wow, newsflash, EU states the obvious. No fucking shit. What should people do to reduce violence against blacks? Oops. EU tariffs incoming. I think everyone in the country that is sane is in agreement that what happened with George Floyd was completely fucked up and shouldn't have happened or come close to happening. Me too, EU. Mad world. Or, call it what the officer is charged with. Murder. Yeah, we know, but nobody who actually could is gonna do shit about it. I'm moving to Australia, fuck yeah. Thanks guys. They echoed the words of the President Trump and all of the authoritative figures in the United States. Yes, please come free Minneapolis. USA stands with EU. Yeah. Duh. What a useless comment. I felt a glow of pride when I saw the masses of peaceful demonstrations, and I'm sure everyone else did too. The whole world is behind you. The adversarial legal system is a corrupt cesspit. The George Floyd case is the epitome of what happens when police, judiciary, and government rig the system in their favor. How decent citizens could have allowed this system to operate over decades is just mind-boggling.